lot of news to get to this morning as well, and we're going to begin with those dueling crises in the White House. The top Trump administration official overseeing the Russia investigation may be on his way out as the president's Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh speaks out in an unprecedented interview, his wife there by his side, to counter the sexual misconduct allegations that threaten his confirmation. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders is here live. First, let's go to senior national correspondent Terry Moran at the Supreme Court. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, George. The gloves are off on both sides, and it is only likely to get tougher. Judge Kavanaugh now taking this unprecedented step of going in front of the public, defending his good name. Democrats are saying there are more allegations that need to be investigated. Republicans are talking about a vote this weekend to put Kavanaugh on the court. It is just a bare-knuckled fight right now to define the character of one man in the court of public opinion.
What do you think is happening?
Judge Brett Kavanaugh with his wife at his side and emotion in his voice telling Fox News he never sexually assaulted anyone, period.
And I know I'm telling the truth. I know my lifelong record. And I'm not going to let false accusations drive me out of this process.
On Thursday, it will be Kavanaugh's word against the testimony of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. Dr. Blasey Ford claims she was assaulted by Kavanaugh at a high school party in 1982. She says Kavanaugh was on top of her, tried to disrobe her, and she says she feared he might inadvertently kill her.
I was focused on trying to be #1 in my class and being captain of the varsity basketball team and doing my service projects, going to church.
Kavanaugh says he may have met Blasey Ford, but he is adamant he was not at the party she describes and that he did not attack her.
And yes, there were parties. And yes, people might have had too many beers on occasion. And people generally in high school, I think all of us have probably done things we look back on in high school and regret or cringe a bit. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an allegation of sexual assault. I've never sexually assaulted anyone. I did not have sexual intercourse or anything close to sexual intercourse in high school or for many years thereafter.
Through all these years that are in question, you were a virgin.
That's correct.
Kavanaugh also responding to a second allegation out this week. Deborah Ramirez, a former classmate of Kavanaugh's at Yale University, told the New Yorker magazine she remembers Kavanaugh exposing himself close to her face at a drunken dorm party.
Never did any such thing. If such a thing had happened, it would have been the talk of campus.
Ramirez acknowledges being intoxicated at the time and having gaps in her memory. But Kavanaugh's freshman roommate at Yale, James Roach, tells ABC affiliate KGO that based on my time with Brett, I believe that he and his social circle were capable of the actions Debbie described. He described Kavanaugh as a heavy drinker who became belligerent and incoherent.
I've always treated women with dignity and respect. He does not corroborate the incident at all.
I don't understand it. I know Brett. I know who he is.
Kavanaugh's wife, Ashley, says her family is relying on their strong faith, but that the allegations have taken a toll.
It's very difficult to have these conversations with your children, which we've had to have. And we told them at the very beginning of this process, this will be not fun sometimes. Just remember, you know your dad.
Protesters taking to the Hill Monday, swarming the office of Republican Senator Susan Collins, seen as a possible swing vote on Kavanaugh. And while Collins says she's still undecided, this morning, most Republicans are rallying around Kavanaugh.
This is what the so-called resistance has become. A smear campaign, pure and simple.
And the president himself staunchly backing his candidate, tweeting overnight that the Democrats are working hard to destroy a wonderful man with an array of false accusations, the likes of which have never been seen before.
I know he's going to stand by me. He called me this afternoon and said he's standing by me.
Last night, the lawyers for Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, that's Kavanaugh's first accuser, scheduled to testify Thursday. They sent a letter to the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa, and they objected to how this hearing is being set up, especially the hiring of, quote, an experienced sex crimes prosecutor to perform some of the questioning of Dr. Blasey Ford. They say that Republicans are using a tactic to avoid their constitutional responsibilities. George?
What a showdown this could be. Tara Moran, thanks very much.
Okay, George, let's turn to the other major headline. A day of whiplash at the White House as President President Trump battles his own Justice Department. The future of Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, the man, of course, who oversees the Russia investigation, now uncertain. After he was headed to the White House expecting to be fired, he ended up keeping his job, at least for now. Our chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl, is tracking it all. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Cecilia. Well, as you say, the Deputy Attorney General was expecting to be fired yesterday. It is anybody's guess whether he will be fired on Thursday when the president comes back to Washington. The president certainly isn't ruling it out.
Meeting with world leaders at the United Nations, President Trump had his mind on an upcoming summit back at the White House.
I'm meeting with Rod Rosenstein on Thursday when I get back from all of these meetings, and we'll be meeting at the White House, and we'll be determining what's going on.
The president has been furious, sources tell ABC News. At a report in the New York Times last week, the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein had suggested secretly recording the president and recruiting cabinet members to remove him from office. Rosenstein denies he pursued those steps, but he was summoned to the White House Monday, and sources told us he was expecting to be fired, a move Trump's critics immediately said would cross the line.
The next step in a slowly evolving slow-motion Saturday Night Massacre in which the president is getting rid of all the people who were involved in initiating or carrying out the investigation of obstruction of justice by him.
For weeks, the president has hinted at a shakeup at his Justice Department, but he's held off amid warnings from key allies about the political danger of such a move.
I have a message for the president tonight. Under zero circumstances should the president fire anybody.
Rosenstein spoke with the president by phone on Monday and met with the chief of staff, John Kelly, at the White House, who, in yet another twist, walked him out to his car as a smiling Rosenstein went back to the Justice Department, still on the job, at least for now.
ABC News has learned that Rosenstein offered to resign over the weekend but couldn't agree with the White House on the conditions and circumstances of his resignation. If he does end up going, the Russia investigation will be overseen by the number 3 official at the Justice Department. That is Noel Francisco, the Solicitor General, who would oversee that investigation until a replacement for Rosenstein is put in place. George?
John Karl, thanks very much. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders in the middle of all of this. She joined us now here on GMA. Thank you for coming in this morning. Let's start out with Rod Rosenstein right there. The president spoke with him on the phone yesterday. Did he tell Mr. Rosenstein that he wants him to stay on the job?
They had an extended conversation and decided to continue it, and they're going to do that on Thursday, and both agreed that it was best to have a conversation like that in person, and that's what they're going to do in 2 days.
Does the president have confidence in Mr. Rosenstein?
The president has confidence in the system, and he...
That's not what I asked.
Well, he wants to, again, I'm not going to get ahead of the conversation that's going to take place. Certainly, he wants things to take place. There have been a number of incidents that have caused a great deal of concern, not just to the president, but to Americans all over the country. People like Bruce Orr, McCabe, and a number of others who have been dishonest and not played the role that they were meant to play through the FBI and through the Department of Justice. And the president wants to have a conversation with Rod Rosenstein, and that'll take place on Thursday.
He wants to know if Rod Rosenstein said, should I wear a wire on the president?
Look, I think he wants to have a conversation with him. They had a very long and good conversation yesterday, and they want to continue that in a couple days.
If Rosenstein refuses to resign, will the president fire him?
I'm not going to get ahead of the president's decision making. Again, he wants the process to work. He wants the Department of Justice to be focused on what it should be and not focused on all of the things that have been taking place over the last several months and frankly, what has become the talk of the Justice Department. That's not what they should be focused on, and that's what the president wants to make sure that they're focused on what they should be.
One of the president's personal attorneys, Jay Sekulow, said that the Mueller investigation should be put on hold if Rosenstein leaves his job. Is that the president's position?
I'm not going to get into the specifics on the Mueller investigation. We think it should be finished because they've spent a year and a half digging through and have still come up with nothing. There was no collusion.
They've had several indictments, several convictions.
Nothing that has anything to do with the president or his campaign. And it's ridiculous that they continue to drum this up and drag it out. And it should, I think, be wrapping up.
Several convictions, several cooperating witnesses. But let me move on.
Nothing to do with the president, though.
Can you
and I think that's important to note.
Can you assure the American people that whatever happens with Rod Rosenstein, the president will allow the Mueller investigation to continue and to conclude?
The president has cooperated throughout this entire process for an extended period of time. He wants it to be transparent. That's why he's asked for documents to be released, and why he and his entire staff have been completely cooperative from day one. But
so he will allow it to finish?
Look, I'm not going to get ahead of where the president is, but he has been very clear that he wants this to come to a conclusion. We expect that it should. And again, they've spent a year and a half and found nothing that has anything to do with this president because there was nothing.
I have to move on to Brett Kavanaugh. The president had that tweet last night railing against false accusations against Mr. Kavanaugh. Why doesn't he think that Ms. Ramirez and Dr. Ford are lying?
Certainly the president has said a number of times that these individuals should be heard.
And he called their accusations false already before they're heard.
Brett Kavanaugh has been unequivocal in his denial of this. He knows Brett Kavanaugh. He's spent a great deal of time with him, and he trusts him. And Brett Kavanaugh has asked for his voice to be heard in this process, too. As last I can remember, we're still a country where you're innocent until proven guilty, except when you're a conservative Republican. It is absolutely shameful what the Democrats have done and the way that they've turned this into a complete political process.
Except
multiple lives have been ruined. Both families have been dragged through the mud when they didn't have to be, because Dianne Feinstein could have done this in a much more structured process, and instead waited until the 11th hour and is playing political games with people's lives. And I find that to be disgraceful and disgusting, and she certainly needs to shoulder a lot of the blame for what's going on right now.
You have both Ms. Ramirez and Dr. Ford saying there should be an FBI investigation. If they thought they weren't telling the truth, they wouldn't be inviting an FBI investigation. Why is it wrong to have an FBI investigation for something as important as a Supreme Court nominee?
Because we have a process in place. They have a Senate process, and we think it should be done through that. No one is trying to hide from this. In fact, Brett Kavanaugh's been leaning in. He's been begging to come and tell his story and be able to do that, whether it's publicly or privately. He's asked for that opportunity, and he's been perfectly open for others to have the opportunity to share their side as well. But let's be clear, from the very beginning, he has been strong and unequivocal in his denial that anything like this happened. He also has a lifetime of a record of empowering and respecting women, and you've seen hundreds of women that know him and know him well come out and say exactly that.
And some of them recant that as well, though. But from the president from the very beginning has been questioning the story of Dr. Ford, including that tweet last week saying that if she were telling the truth, she would have reported it to the authorities at the time. That drew a sharp response from Senator Susan Collins.
I was appalled by the president's tweet. I thought that the president's tweet was completely inappropriate and wrong.
What's your response?
Look, the president once again has said on a number of occasions that he thinks everybody's voices should be heard, and let's let this process play out. It's the Democrats who have been halting it from the beginning and not allowing this to go through the process because they want this to be a political game, and I think that the way that they have operated in this is absolutely appalling. If anything has been appalling, it's the way that they have gone after and used these people's stories and their lives and exploited them for political gain.
These women have come forward and agreed to go public.
Trying to do it in a private manner and could have done so had Senator Dianne Feinstein allowed that to happen, and she didn't.
Well, actually, they went public. She was respecting the confidentiality, but you've said that everybody's voices should be heard. So does the president want Ms. Ramirez to appear before the Senate Judiciary Committee as well?
Certainly, we would be open to that, and that process could take place on Thursday. Again, the president's been clear. Let them speak, but let's also let Brett Kavanaugh speak, and let's let him tell his side of the story before we allow allegations to determine his entire future.
It does seem, though, that the president has already reached a judgment about their stories, and there does seem to be a pattern here. When Roy Moore is accused, when Bill O'Reilly is accused, when Roger Ailes is accused, when Rob Porter is accused, and now when Brett Kavanaugh is accused, the president consistently, every single time, takes the side of the man.
You know, it's interesting that you say that. It's a lot of Democrats that like to ignore Keith Ellison and Cory Cory Booker. They love to fight and champion women until they disagree with them.
Al Franken lost his job in the Senate.
And a number of other Democrats should have the same type of scrutiny. Look, the president is
But what's the answer to my question? Every single time the president has taken the side of the man against women accusers.
That's not true. And in this case, the president knows Brett Kavanaugh. He's heard his story. There hasn't been a shred of evidence to corroborate the other individual stories. And there has been a lot of individuals that have come forward and talked about the Brett Kavanaugh that they know, and they're confident that these things didn't happen.
Final question. What does the president hope to achieve at the UN today?
I think that his speech this morning is going to be a great moment for the president. We've had a tremendous amount of success, particularly when it comes to the foreign policy front over the last year since he gave his last speech. If you'll remember, the rhetoric last year was extremely tough with North Korea. I think you'll see certainly a different tone, and a lot of progress has been made on that front, in large part due to the president's leadership.
Sarah Sanders, thanks very much.
Thanks
Cecilia?
so much, George.
Today is going to be quite a day. Shall we shift gears here?